Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking into having multiple Firebase projects inside of a singular Angular 8 application. What this will allow you to do is leverage multiple Firebase projects and their offerings such as Firestore or Cloud Functions and even authentication within one application. So to get started, this is what your environment file most likely looks like, where you're holding your Firebase configuration. And then your app module is where you're initializing the Angular Fire module while pulling in your environment variable for your Firebase configuration and then importing the subsequent modules that you're using in your application for Angular Firestore. And then within your app component, you're using the regular dependency injection for, in this example, Angular Firestore to go through and run a query on the database. The first step that we're going to take is modify our environment file to model an easier key value pair for understanding what Firebase config we want to be using for a specific piece of Angular Fire. Up next is going to be creating a core module, and that's where we're going to be registering our provider for our environment configuration. We're going to be leveraging the Angular injection tokens to go through and provide some sort of object and tell it what value to be using, which will end up being our environment file, which Angular takes care of in choosing the correct environment file at build time based off your angular.json, which has your configuration blocks inside of it. So here is where I'm declaring the provider, and I'll say to provide the env config, we want to use the value of environment. Next, inside of our core folder, we're going to create a Firebase module. The Firebase module will be in charge of providing the correct instances of Angular Firestore and or Angular Fire authentication, functions, and etc. Really anything that you can use in Angular Fire is what we'll be creating custom factories for. So the first part was to set up our injection tokens for our Firebase projects, which you can reference in the environment.ts file. So we're saying for Firebase project 1, we want to use the value of project-1. And now we're creating our Angular Firestore factory, and this will register the correct version of Angular Firestore against what we have in the environment file. And here is where we create the Firebase references. So we say for project 1 Firestore, we'll give it a name of project 1 Firestore, and same thing for, let's say, project 2 Fire authentication, we give it a reference of 2 FireAuth. This is a way that we can use the inject decorator whenever we're doing the dependency injection in the constructor about which instance of Firestore or Fire authentication that we want to be using in that class. Here is where we declare the provider for Firebase references of the first Firestore database. We have the dependencies array where we say what all dependencies we want to be injecting into this factory, and then for the use factory is the actual function to execute during the initialization of the application. And here is where we go through and declare our other providers. So for instance, the second database, and then I'll also be bringing in a new factory for a FireAuth factory, and now I'm going to declare the providers for Firebase authentication. And now to begin the cleanup, we need to remove the Angular Fire module initializer, And we'll be keeping the Angular Firestore module, and if you're using authentication, you'd also have Angular Fire authentication brought in. But lastly, we just need to import the core module into there as well. And then we just need to adjust our constructor dependency injection to add the inject decorator, and just bring in our Firebase reference of which Firestore provider we want to use. So for this one, we're using one Firestore, and then next we will have the completed file where it will have the both usages of Firestore with one database and the other database as well. And overall, this file just does a simple query and then lists for snapshot changes. And then we'll update our template to go and pull and have stuff from both the databases using the async pipe. And then the final results here, you'll see we have both databases hooked up, and you can see we make changes to either or, and you'll see the real-time updates trickling through on the far left-hand side. You can check out the source code with the GitHub link in the description, along with a link to the Medium article write-up. Drop a comment down below if you have any questions or feedback, and have a good day.